All right, everybody. You asked for him. Here he is, Anatoly Yakovenko. Anatoly, did I get your name correct? Did I butcher it too bad?
Nailed it.
Perfect. Great. So Anatoly is the CEO of a little crypto project known as Solana, Solana. And it's caught fire. People cannot stop talking about it at my poker game. Everybody is really excited about the potential. And as a proxy for that, the price of Solana has gone up 90x, not 90%, 90 times since January 1st of 2020 from a buck and change, maybe $2 to $166 today, putting them as the 6th or 7th largest crypto project, depending on the day, blowing past Doge and XRP, and right behind the Ethereums and Bitcoins and Cardano and Tethers of the world. Tether, obviously a stable coin. We'll see how long that sticks around. Welcome to the program, Anatoly.
Awesome to be here.
So you've got a long history in the technology business. You worked at Dropbox for a bit, working on their distributed systems, and you were an engineer at Qualcomm, and you had your own VoIP startup at the turn of the millennium. When did you first find out about crypto? And then how did you come up with the idea for Solana? And what is Solana's mission? A couple of questions there. Take them as you like.
Yeah. So early days for me in crypto were when BTC was just starting out. And I thought it was kind of silly. And it was the only way I was looking at it is, well, I could probably optimize the mining code and see if I can mine these things faster than anyone else. But things started moving so quickly by the time I thought, well, maybe I should do GPUs. Somebody was mining it, the GPUs already. By the time I thought maybe I could roll an FPGA, there was an ASIC already for sale. People were running a Kickstarter for sale. And my true experience with crypto was at Kickstarter. I forget the name of the company, but they basically built the system, but then mined BTC with it and didn't release the actual hardware to their users until they exhausted their advantage. And to me, that was like the quintessential crypto experience. Just don't trust anybody. Yeah. But I was an engineer, and I looked at it strictly from kind of an engineering perspective and didn't really understand the monetary or social implications of it for a decade, I would say.
Yeah. So I think at the core of Solana's value proposition is that the transaction fees and the block times are going to be extremely low. Right now, I believe that your cost per transaction is, my gosh, it's like a thousandth of a penny or something crazy like that. Explain to people who are neophytes what this means in plain English, that the block times and the transaction costs are so low, especially when compared to, say, making a transaction with Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Yeah, Bitcoin can do I think 7 transactions per second theoretically. Ethereum, I think it depends on the gas capacity, but it's somewhere between 11 and 20, maybe 30 at most. But with Solana, you're not limited by block space. There isn't like a limit that the network sets. It's purely the bandwidth available to the network. And bandwidth is plentiful. It's this thing that you can get, for $100 at home, you can get 1 gigabit of it in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And at a data center, when you sign up and put your box there, they give you 1 gigabit for free, because they really only care about when you go over that and you're trying to get 10 gigs or 20 gigs of bandwidth. So a network with 1 gigabit available to it globally should be able to fit, 500,000 of these things per second if the software doesn't suck. So since it takes 4 to 10 years to build one of these generic multi-purpose database operating system, any kind of complex system like this, we're 4 years in, I think we're like a factor of 10 off that theoretical.
So for people who don't understand these concepts, maybe you could help us with Solana being a proof of stake network versus, say, Bitcoin's proof of work network. What does this mean for folks?
So there's how do you know when you're talking to somebody on the internet that it's not a bot? right? That it's not just like a bunch of troll farms from the old country or whatever that that are all
you said it, not me.
Hey, that's where I was born. They're pretending to be somebody else. So in proof of work in Bitcoin, the way that they do this is you have to prove that you burned electricity somewhere. And that's how you prove that you are voting with something. And because electricity costs money, it's assumed that it's hard to get a lot of it. And that's where the security of the network comes from. In proof of stake, you're kind of trying to fake this by creating a virtual token, which ends up being the underlying token that you use for fees and everything else that is used to prove that you're not faking these votes. And you do that with a signature from your cryptographic key. And long story short, you can think of it as it's no different than VeriSign, this long, certificate chaining that you see in old school web. That proves that you're talking to Google. Well, imagine if Google, instead of having one vote per certificate chain, that had 1 billion votes that they could spread out in different amounts to everybody else that's part of their Google certificate chain. And all of a sudden you can say, well, did 2/3 of Google agree on this thing?
Got it.
And that's really where proof of stake comes from. It's just a way to assign weights to a public key.
So when the Solana network was released, did people mine the coins or were they just issued in the world?
They were issued, much like VeriSign issues a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of certificates. So in that initial Genesis block, you had a bunch of validators, a bunch of early investors, and foundation and labs and stuff like that. And once the network got running, part of building these totally open permissionless networks is socializing the cost of the operations. So who pays for the bandwidth? Who pays for the hardware? And spreading out that cost is you bake in some crypto economics is what they call it, but literally it's spam resistance. We have this token that represents a weight in the network. We want to make sure that people don't just flood the network with messages. They don't create too many validators that vote. And that token, its capacity, represents the limits of how far you can push the system. And also, participating in that system gives you that token with the hope that it's worth something for somebody to spam this, and therefore this thing has value.
So how many nodes, how many computers, I guess, would be a way to say it for folks out there. How many of those exist in the network? And then what does it cost to do that? And then what do they gain by being part of the network?
So on the network right now, the Solana mainnet beta, there is, if I can look correctly, I can check right now. It's about like 1,100 voting validators.
Okay.
On the testnet is like 2,200.
Who are those validators? What is their motivation? How does one become one?
So a bunch of these are volunteers, so to speak. They're people that want to earn tokens. So being a validator means you're running a box somewhere and somebody assigns you stake, or you self-assign yourself some stake. And those are the tokens that represents the weight of that VeriSign certificate, hypothetical certificate. And when you vote, you get rewards. And the more rewards you accumulate, the more tokens you have.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Silicon Valley Bank. What's next? What if? Are we ready? Now what? These are the questions that can keep founders up at night. And no one understands this quite like Silicon Valley Bank. For over 35 years, Silicon Valley Bank has helped thousands of high-growth companies by providing scalable financial solutions along with insights and expertise that many other banks just can't. From healthcare to hardware, software to infrastructure, SVB works with companies across the innovation landscape at all stages of the journey, anticipating their needs even before they do. And by providing access to insights and in-depth reports, SVB can help you make more informed decisions and assist in turning your great idea into a great business. Which could be why 50% of US-based, venture-backed tech and life science companies bank with SVB. Learn more at svb.com/twist. Silicon Valley Bank, built for what's next.